Have you ever looked back on a decision and thought, I knew better, so why did I still do it? Not because you were foolish, not because you lacked intelligence, but because something in you was still hoping, still needing, still trying to make a painful situation turn into something gentler than it really was. No one tells you this after 50, but many women do not make their most painful mistakes because they are naive in the simple sense. They make them because they are human, because they are loyal, because they are emotionally trained to endure, because they confuse love with patience, guilt with responsibility, and hope with wisdom. And maybe you've felt this too. There comes a point in many women's lives when they begin to see certain patterns in themselves with a kind of quiet honesty. The pattern of giving one more chance when the pattern is already clear. The pattern of explaining away what hurt. The pattern of staying emotionally available to people who rarely handle that availability with care. The pattern of thinking, this time will be different, when deep down, part of them already knows the shape of what is coming. That is not stupidity. It is emotional habit mixed with longing. And that is a much more painful thing to face, because it asks a woman to admit something deeper than I was wrong. It asks her to ask, what in me kept hoping for a different ending from the same pattern? But no one really talks about this with enough kindness. People often judge women harshly for what they stay in, what they tolerate, what they return to, or what they fail to walk away from quickly enough. They say, she should have known better. And often, yes, she did know something. She sensed something. She felt something. The problem was not always a lack of awareness. The problem was conflict inside the awareness. One part of her knew. Another part still wanted to believe. That inner split is where many women suffer. Woman may sense that a relationship is one-sided, but still hope loyalty will soften it. She may notice the manipulation, but still feel guilty for naming it. She may see that her grown children are becoming emotionally distant, but still tell herself not to ask for too much because she does not want to become that mother. She may realize her marriage has become practical rather than emotionally nourishing, but still stay quiet because the structure of the life is intact and she no longer knows what language to use. For the ache, these are not the mistakes of a shallow woman. These are the dilemmas of a deeply feeling woman who was taught to be patient with everyone except herself. That is a quiet truth. Many women were raised to doubt their discomfort before they questioned other people's behavior. They were taught to consider everyone's circumstances, everyone's wounds, everyone's stress, everyone's limitations. And while that can create compassion, it can also create a dangerous pattern. A woman becomes so skilled at understanding others that she stops protecting herself from what that understanding is costing her. This is one of the most overlooked forms of self-betrayal. Not because she does not value herself, but because she has spent years treating self-protection like selfishness. So what looks from the outside like bad judgment is often something else entirely. It is often a woman overriding her own perception in order to preserve peace, keep love, avoid conflict, remain needed, or hold on to the image of who she hoped someone would become. She is not choosing blindly. She is choosing against her own first knowing. That is different. And the reason this matters so much after 50 is because by this age, many women are carrying the emotional evidence of their own patterns. They have enough life behind them now to recognize that some of the deepest pain did not come from not knowing. It came from not honoring what they knew early enough. That realization can be sobering. A woman may look back and think, I saw the signs. I felt the discomfort. I knew how this person was. I knew I was giving more than I was receiving. I knew my body felt heavy every time I was around them. And yet she stayed, or returned, or explained it away, or became smaller to keep the connection alive. Why? Because knowing is not always the hardest part. Acting on what you know is harder when love, guilt, loneliness, history, family roles, financial dependency, or fear of change are all wrapped around the truth. Asterisk. This is why women who look strong from the outside can remain stuck in patterns that quietly diminish them. Not because they are weak, because human beings do not leave emotional systems only when they understand them. They leave when the cost of staying becomes clearer than the fear of leaving. And for many mature women, that clarity comes slowly. It comes after years of being the peacemaker. After years of saying, "It's okay." After years of telling themselves not to be too sensitive. After years of placing everyone else's emotional comfort ahead of their own. Emotional truth that can happen in marriage. A woman may know her husband is emotionally unavailable. She may have known for years, but she tells herself he is decent, he provides, he does not mean harm, he shows love in his own way. And perhaps all of that is true. But another truth may also be present. She is lonely with him in a way she no longer wants to keep minimizing. It can happen with children too. Mother may know her adult children only call when they need something, or that they become impatient when she expresses hurt, or that they love her but no longer really make space for her emotional reality. And because she does not want to seem demanding, she swallows that ache and calls it maturity. It can happen in friendship. A woman may know she is always the listener, always the one who remembers, reaches out, softens things, gives grace, and receives very little of the same depth in return. Yet she stays because shared history can feel like intimacy, even when the emotional reality is much thinner. This is why I would never call such a woman foolish. I would call her conditioned. I would call her hopeful. I would call her emotionally overtrained to endure. I would call her someone who has spent years learning how to make difficult relationships livable, even when they were not truly nourishing. And that kind of conditioning runs deep. It teaches a woman to mistrust abrupt clarity, to question the moment she finally says, "No, this is not enough," to feel guilty when she stops translating poor treatment into understandable behavior, to wonder whether she is becoming cold, selfish, or unforgiving when in truth she may simply be becoming honest. That honesty is often late in arriving because women are not only dealing with the person in front of them, they are also dealing with who they have been taught to be: the good woman, the patient woman, the reliable woman, the emotionally mature woman, the woman who keeps the family stable, the woman who understands. And maybe you know how heavy that role can become, because once a woman is identified with patience and emotional strength, people begin expecting her to keep absorbing what others are not willing to face in themselves. If she resists, she may be called changed, difficult, sharp, less warm, less understanding. So part of her learns to stay agreeable, even when her spirit is quietly shrinking. This is why one of the first techniques for sharpening your instinct is very simple, but very difficult. Stop treating your first discomfort as a problem to solve. Treat it as information. If something feels off, do not rush to explain it away. If a pattern leaves you consistently drained, do not immediately turn it into your own emotional failing. If you feel smaller after certain conversations, less clear, more guilty, more responsible, more self-doubting, pause there. You do not need a courtroom level of proof to take your inner experience seriously. That pause is powerful because it interrupts the old habit of self-correction. It allows a woman to notice before she justifies, to observe before she performs understanding, to gather herself before she rushes back into the role of the one who makes everything easier for everyone else. Another technique is to ask a quieter question than "what did they mean?" Ask instead, "What does this pattern keep doing to me?" Does it make you calmer or more confused? Does it leave you feeling respected or indebted? Does it allow you to be honest or train you to be careful? Does it make you feel loved or merely needed? Asterisk. This question sharpens instinct because it moves attention away from endless interpretation and back toward lived emotional reality. And mature women need that, perhaps more than anyone, because by this stage of life, the greatest losses are often not dramatic ones. They are the slow erosions. The slow erosion of self-trust. The slow erosion of spontaneity. The slow erosion of emotional openness. The slow erosion that comes from knowing something is not right, but staying long enough that it starts to feel normal. If this resonates with you, you are not alone. So many women live with that private tension between what they know and what they keep tolerating. And it takes great courage to look at that honestly without shaming yourself for it. And if you enjoy this kind of thoughtful, emotionally truthful conversation, you may consider subscribing. There is something quietly healing about hearing women's hidden experiences spoken aloud with compassion instead of judgment. What keeps a woman in a pattern she already understands is rarely lack of intelligence. More often, it is emotional loyalty. Loyalty to what she hoped the relationship could become. Loyalty to the role she has played for years. Loyalty to the version of herself who believes love should endure. Loyalty to family stories, old promises, old guilt, old identities. And sometimes, though it is painful to say, loyalty to pain she has become so familiar with that peace feels almost unfamiliar by comparison. This is where the conversation gets deeper. Because if a woman can clearly see that something is not right, then why does she still stay? Why does she return? Why does she keep overgiving? Why does she keep translating poor treatment into understandable behavior? Why does she keep making room for people who leave so little room for her? The answer is often not in the mind alone. It lives in the nervous system, in memory, in identity, in what her heart learned very early about how love works. Many women were not taught that love feels safe, reciprocal, and emotionally clear. They were taught, directly or indirectly, that love means patience. That love means proving yourself. That love means adapting. That love means carrying the emotional atmosphere of the relationship. That love means not giving up too easily. That love means understanding someone else's woundedness, even when your own needs go unrecognized. So later in life, when a woman sees herself still tolerating what hurts, she may judge herself harshly. But very often she is not acting out of foolishness. She is acting out of an old emotional blueprint. A blueprint that says, stay kind, stay calm, stay loyal, stay available. And maybe eventually you will be chosen properly, seen properly, loved properly. That blueprint can shape decades, and maybe this is why some women become so tired in ways they cannot fully explain. Not just tired of people. Tired of carrying an old emotional role that no longer fits their truth. Because what once looked like maturity may now feel like self-abandonment. What once looked like devotion may now feel like silence. What once looked like patience may now feel like fear of disruption. What once looked like being the good one may now feel like being the one who disappeared quietly while everyone else remained comfortable. That realization can be deeply painful. A woman may begin to see that she did not just stay in certain relationships because she loved too much. She stayed because leaving the pattern would have required grieving many things at once. The person, the hope, the role, the identity, the fantasy that if she just gave it enough time, enough grace, enough emotional intelligence, it would become what it was supposed to be. Grief is one of the biggest reasons people stay too long, not because they are confused, because they do not yet want to mourn the truth. And mature women know something about grief. They know how layered it is. They know it rarely comes alone. One ending often brings several losses with it. If she steps out of the role of the endlessly understanding woman, she may lose approval. If she stops over-functioning in the family, she may lose her place as the dependable one. If she tells the truth in marriage, she may lose the illusion that practical stability was enough. If she stops chasing emotionally distant children, she may have to face the ache of needing more than they are ready to give. So yes, sometimes a woman keeps tolerating what she sees because the truth itself is heavy. But there is another layer too. Many women do not only fear loss, they fear becoming someone unfamiliar to themselves. If she is no longer the patient one, who is she? If she is no longer the one who smooths it over, who is she? If she stops being emotionally available to everyone, is she still loving? If she stops explaining other people's behavior for them, is she still kind? If she stops carrying the relationship, will there be a relationship left at all? These are not simple questions. They reach into identity. That is why change can feel so frightening, even when the current pattern is painful. The woman is not only considering whether to set a boundary or pull back, she is also confronting the possibility that she may have built much of her worth around how much she can endure without breaking the connection. And when worth gets tied to endurance, self-betrayal becomes very hard to spot because it no longer feels like betrayal. It feels like virtue. This is one of the saddest emotional traps many women live in for years. They do not ask, is this relationship nourishing me? They ask, am I being patient enough? They do not ask, is there real reciprocity here? They ask, am I expecting too much? They do not ask, why am I always the one carrying the emotional truth? They ask, how can I explain this more gently so the other person does not feel hurt? Do you see how quiet that trap is? Asterisk, it trains a woman to become more loyal to the comfort of others than to the signals of her own inner life. And over time, that creates a split. Outwardly, she appears composed. Inwardly, she feels depleted, unchosen, or vaguely lonely in relationships that should feel warmer than they do. This is why one of the most important techniques for sharpening instinct is to notice where your energy goes after an interaction, not just your thoughts. Your energy. Do you feel restored or drained? Do you feel clearer or more mentally tangled? Do you feel free to be yourself, or do you immediately begin adjusting your tone, your memory, your needs, your interpretation? A woman who has spent years overriding herself often needs to return to very simple questions. How do I feel in this person's presence? How do I feel after they leave? Do I feel more like myself or less? These questions matter because emotional truth is often easier to feel in the body than to explain in words. Another technique is this: stop treating repeated disappointment like a communication problem if it is actually a pattern problem. This changes everything. Some women spend years trying to say it better to people who already understand enough but simply do not want the responsibility of change. They keep refining the message, softening the tone, waiting for the perfect moment, hoping a better explanation will finally create mutuality. But repeated disappointment is often not asking for better wording. It is revealing a structure where one person gives more, waits more, understands more, explains more, forgives more, and feels guilty for needing less of that. Once a woman sees structure, she stops wasting so much emotional energy on presentation. She begins seeing the truth more simply. This is what is happening. This is what it does to me. This is what has not changed. And this is what I can no longer keep calling love if love means leaving myself behind. That is not cruelty. That is clarity. And clarity in mature women often comes quietly. Not as a dramatic speech, not as a grand ending, but as a shift in what she no longer participates in. She stops over-explaining. She stops running after emotional closure from people who prefer distance. She stops rescuing conversations from awkwardness when the awkwardness belongs to the truth. She stops trying to earn tenderness by remaining endlessly useful. She stops turning every disappointment into another chance to prove her emotional maturity. This is often when peace begins returning, not because everything is solved, but because she is no longer fighting her own perception every day. That changes the quality of a woman's life more than people realize. She sleeps differently. She breathes differently. She notices resentment softening because overgiving is softening. She begins to feel less trapped inside other people's moods. She starts to trust the part of herself that knew earlier than she was ready to admit. And perhaps the deepest shift of all is this: she stops asking, "What is wrong with me that I stayed?" and begins asking, "What did I need so badly that I kept hoping against the pattern?" Then she meets that part of herself with compassion. Maybe she needed to feel chosen. Maybe she needed to feel irreplaceable. Maybe she needed to believe love could become safer than it had been before. Maybe she needed to hold on to the identity of being the one who keeps things together. Maybe she was simply afraid of what truth would cost. These are not stupid reasons. They are deeply human ones. And when a woman starts seeing herself through that lens, shame loosens. She no longer has to insult herself into change. She no longer has to call herself blind, weak, or foolish. She can say something truer. I was trying to survive in the only emotional language I had at the time. I was loyal to something that no longer deserved that loyalty. I was hoping. I was afraid. I was carrying more than I admitted. I see it more clearly now. That kind of honesty is powerful because it creates change without cruelty. If this resonates with you, you are not alone. So many women reach a stage in life where they realize the problem was never that they were not smart enough. The real struggle was that they were too trained to endure what should have been questioned much sooner. And if you enjoy content like this, you may consider subscribing. There is something deeply healing about hearing women's inner lives spoken of with truth and respect, instead of judgment. The quiet reality is this: many women do not need stronger logic. They need deeper permission. Permission to trust what they feel. Permission to stop translating pain into virtue. Permission to grieve what never became what it promised. Permission to become less available where love has become labor. Permission to stop being so patient with what keeps wounding them. Permission to protect their peace without calling themselves hard. Asterisk, because in the end, the wisest women are not the ones who never misread a situation. They are the ones who eventually stop abandoning themselves just to keep a familiar, emotional story alive. And perhaps that is not failure at all. Perhaps that is the moment a woman finally begins returning to herself.